Good day, good morning, or good evening, depending on where you are. But when there's a will, there's a way, and you're in the right place to stay. Pelicans Daily presented by Fan Arch. I'm your host, Dylan Bruton. Make sure to like, share, subscribe. You know how it goes. Don't even got to say it. No, I'm just kidding. I always got to remind y'all. But I appreciate y'all on this journey. The love and support is real. You know what I'm saying? Keep it up. Keep going. Major salute. Hats off to y'all. So obviously, let's get right into it. Talk about those New Orleans Pelicans. Our guy, Chris Lambert. I'm a manifest. Like me and Chris gonna run into each other one day. We're gonna chop it up and be like, yo, man, let's get you on a pod. Let's really talk Pelicans ball. I like your insight. But he wrote, came out with a really good article, and it was talking about Jordan Poole. Now, Jordan Poole, for all reasons, you know what I'm saying, is a very polarizing player to some. But I think he's got a lot of talent. Now, I'm a little biased. There is some 6 degrees of separation with him and some people that we both mutually know, same age as me. And when I was coming up and playing ball, the way he plays is very similar to the way I would play. You know what I'm saying? Like I was very like coaches used to bench me like no other because I love to show off. You know what I'm saying? I did not play humble. I was a very cocky player. I know some of y'all be like, what? You? Yeah, I was a very cocky player. You know what I'm saying? Especially when the handle was tight and I was on my and one grind. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And especially if I saw a girl in the crowd. Oh, man. I was just like Jay Poole. You know what I'm saying? But as a player, I think that he's a player that has a lot of talent that hasn't been fully realized. You know what I'm saying? And unfortunately, his momentum did get a little messed up with the the punch incident with Draymond Green from a couple of years ago. But currently, right now, his future in Washington is unsecure. Right? They don't know whether he's going to be a building block of the future or if he's going to be a trade piece to potentially get more draft picks or to try to get someone else. But this past year, he rebounded really well after kind of struggling initially. But he averaged 20.5 points per game, three rebounds, 4.5 assists on 43% from the field, nearly 38 from three, and 88% from the free throw line. And this all in 29 minutes a game. You know what I'm saying? So like those numbers with like just even a bit more minutes, those are all-star numbers easily. And there was a reason why he was called the third splash brother, right? He had an amazing playoffs in 2022, averaged 17 a game, 3 boards, 4 assists on 51% shooting, 39 from three, and 92 from the free throw line. I mean, he was just on a tear in that playoff run. It looked like Golden State had their guy to build around, once Steph retired, but unfortunately it didn't work out that way as many thought. But as a player, I think he's a very intriguing player because he's still, again, he's only 25 years old, turns 26 soon, but he still has a lot more in his ceiling. His skill set, his ability to create as a shot creator, his ability to shoot the ball. You can't deny that, and he's improving as a defender. He's made some significant leaps. Now, Chris Lambert talked about him being a potential trade piece, just given the uncertain nature, right, on C.J. McCollum, and then with DeJounte's injury recovery. And we got a lot of guards. You know what I'm saying? You'll see one of them who I can't wait to talk about. My guy Jordan Hawkins. But we got Jordan Hawkins, we got Antonio Reeves, we got Brandon Boston, we got Jose Alvarado. We got a lot of guards. Where a lot of mock drafts have us getting Jeremiah Fears, who I very much am a little bit leaning towards and a bit more biased about. But you can at least think about this one and see. You know what? This actually could work. You can come away from and think this could work. Now we have a lot of draft capital in many drafts. From I don't want us to move the seventh pick, but some of these other ones in later years, especially for a team like the Wizards, who they're really committing to the rebuild versus we're rebuilding, but we're like, the talent, the personnel is there to make a playoff jump if everything all comes together. But a player like Jordan Poole, who already has championship experience, he was on a winning franchise. Granted, he hasn't been able to turn into a number one guy in Washington, but what's to say he can't turn it up playing next to a Zion or a Trey Murphy, or Herb or Eve or CJ if CJ is still there. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's to say he can't up his level, or even just be another scorer off the bench. You know what I'm saying? Like I think there's a lot of value that he still is possesses and would be able to tap into. So I'm not opposed. I don't think we should give up the farm for him, but if we come, a reasonable package put together, you could do a whole lot worse. Now, this guy, why to do that? My guy, R.J. Barrett. Y'all know I'm a Duke fan. I've been very loud, out, and proud about that one. No shame in my game, baby. Blue Devil Nation. So this was from the Raptors site. So shout out to those Toronto Raptors. Amos Caesar Mina wrote this article for Raptor Rapture, and he was talking about them potentially getting Trey Murphy III. Now, everybody wants Trey. You know what I'm saying? I get it. He's young. His growth has been exponential. He's been developing right before our eyes, and he's incredibly skilled on both ends of the court, and he can create his own shot. So that makes him a very attractive player to try to push forth, and he's going to have a pretty big amount of he's definitely has a huge amount of suitors, and he has a huge amount of people that want to potentially include him as a future cornerstone piece. Now, y'all know my stance. I don't want us to give up nobody for real, but I really don't want us to give up Zion, Trey, or Herb. Them three especially. They're the most untouchable players to me on the roster. But a trade that, I don't want to make it, but there's some slight intrigue, right? But a trade that was talked about was, to trade Trey for RJ straight up, and if not, throw a couple picks or two. Now, RJ, again, as a Duke fan, I'm a little biased. A lot of people forget RJ, not Zion, was the leading scorer of that Duke team in 2018-2019. A lot of people forget RJ, not Zion, was the top recruit out of that class of 2018. A lot of people forget RJ, not Zion, was initially mocked to go number one. They were calling him Maple Mamba, Lefty Mamba. You know what I'm saying? Like, the hype for him was huge. He's not fully realized all that yet, but he's only 24. Last year, he averaged 21, 6, 5 assists, 47% from the field, 35 from three, 63 from the free throw line. Now, that has to improve. But his efficiency, that was the main knock against him when he was in New York, was that, like, he's an incredibly hard-nosed player, has that alpha dog mentality, is unafraid of the moment, but the efficiency, he would put some horrible shooting percentages because he's looking for a shot. But, I think him coming back home to Canada, because he's a Canadian, I think that probably has been a big help, also not being under the light and pressure of the New York media and having people kind of look at him as like the redheaded stepchild, because they're like, well, we wanted Zion, we wanted Ja, but we settled on you. You know what I'm saying? No one ever wants to feel settled on, just in general. But he's really upped his play these last 2 years with the Raptors. You know what I'm saying? He's averaged 21, 6, and 5 on nearly 50% from the field, 36 from three, and 63% from the free throw line. If he gets the free throw percentages up, those are all-star stats easily. He's a great two-way player. His offensive game is improving. That confidence and that dog mentality that he showed when he was at Monteverde, or his freshman year at Duke, when he was also an All-American. Okay, like, let's not act like R.J. Barrett is some scrub. This is my Duke bias fully coming out, just so y'all know. But Nah, objectively speaking, let's not act like RJ is not a talented player. Let's not act like RJ doesn't have valuable skill. And as a two-way player, right, there is a lot of similarity with him and Trey. You know what I'm saying? Neither are the most fluid players. I would say, if you had said a few years ago, would I be saying this? No, I knew about Trey Murphy because they're around the same age, but RJ was the bigger, better, known name prospect. But I would say, Trey is a bit more comfortable offensively. That's kind of the best way to put it. He's a bit smoother with his movements versus RJ is a little bit more, I don't want to say awkward, but his game doesn't have like that same type of finesse to it. But it's effective. It's effective as hell. He's a winning attitude type of player. You know what I'm saying? He was he stepped up when called upon, in those first couple of years when Thibodeau led the Knicks back to the playoffs. So this would be the worst trade either. And I don't want us to give up trade. You know what I'm saying? I think it's special when you have someone that you have personally seen develop right in front of your eyes. However, I feel like that there's more. If you're going to make a trade like that, then you need to get someone who's comparable. You need to get somebody who's going to be able to fill that void. Because ultimately, losing Trey would cause for a big void. And if we lose Herb as well, it just exacerbates the issue even more. So a player like RJ, and then just think about it too, right? Him and Zion, they loved playing with each other. There was just a joy that they had. They're both lefties. They came and they came, saw, and conquered. That was a special duo to watch. And they were, if they play, I was rewatching the Michigan State game. If they play that Michigan State team 9 times out of 10, they win easily. It only came down to free throws. That's something that RJ struggled with back then, and he's still struggling with now, and that's something Zion struggled with back then, he's still struggling with now. If them two brothers lock in the gym and get their free throws right, you know what I'm saying? RJ could easily be a 25-plus guy. Zion could easily be a 30-plus guy. So I don't feel like it would be the worst thing. Again, I want us to keep Trey. I've been very clear, but if we're going to trade Trey, either it has to be for a player who is similar to him, that's still young, that still can develop. I mean, if a superstar, then yeah, that's a whole different thing. Or for a lot of draft picks, first round. You know what I'm saying? That's the only way it works. That's the only way that's gonna make sense. Now, this may or may not make sense to y'all. So I've talked about Kristaps. I put part 5. I've talked about him plenty on this channel. At this point, the potential for him to become a Pelican is looking higher and higher. This was another article put out by our guy Chris Lambert, and in this one, it proposed a 3-team deal that there is some bit of weight to it. There is some bit of consideration going on. We'll see what happens. But after reading it, I was like, honestly, this is actually one of the better 3-team trades I've seen, in the sense of everybody is walking away happy. No one is walking away like, yo, man, I got fleeced. I got finessed. You know what I'm saying? So, for starters, we would receive Kristaps, and we would also receive Jaden Hardy from the Mavs. And Jaden Hardy, as a player, you know what I'm saying, last year averaged 9, 2 and an assist, 45% from the field, 39 from 3, 70% from the free throw line. Young, very athletic guard. There's still a lot of potential he could tap into. He's only 23 years old, been in the league for a few years. He could, who knows, right? Who knows what he could turn into. The Mavs would get CJ McCollum, so sorry to see you go, CJ, but as I've stated, you are likely the most expendable player. It just is what it is. You're the best player who is also the most expendable. You know what I'm saying? Just by and far. With age, and your experience, your maturity, it makes you the most attractive piece to a team that's already kind of figured out, okay, we're building a roster that we think can compete for a title. Go play for a contender versus stick around on a team that is figuring out their identity, figuring out how to build that culture. They would also get the 28th pick, and that they would acquire that from the Celtics, who is the third and final team. And they would get P.J. Washington and Daniel Gafford. And, there's some 6-degree separation with me and P.J. Washington, but I'm not going to expound too much. Nothing bad. But P.J. Washington's a very underrated player. As an undersized power forward, last year he averaged, about 15 a game, 8 boards, 2 assists, a block, 45% from the field, 38 from 3, and 72 from the free throw line. And last year in their playoff run, before getting to the finals, he was a big piece and a big, key ingredient in multiple series, in the Denver series and in the Minnesota series. You know what I'm saying? But he averaged 13 a game, 7 boards, and assists, 43% from the field, 35 from 3, 71 from the free throw line. And then Daniel Gafford, and it's funny because both these guys are like my exact high school class. So it's like, it makes it even more funny. I'm like, these guys could have been my classmates for real. But Daniel Gafford this past year, prior to his injury, and that was a big thing that I talked about with people when the Luka and Anthony Davis trade went down. Losing Daniel Gafford was a big loss. You know what I'm saying? But he averaged 12 a game, 7 boards, 2 blocks, 70% from the field, 70% from the, about 69% from the free throw line. And then last year he averaged 9 points, 6 boards, 2 blocks, 63% from the field, and 63% from the free throw line during the playoffs. So as a player, right, both those guys, PJ and Daniel, they played a big role to being the defensive, the defensive aces. Them and Derrick Jones. I would say them three were the most important defensive pieces to that Mavs team. Because obviously offensively, you were worried about Luka and Kyrie. Primarily Luka, then Kyrie, right? And especially with Luka not like defense being his biggest Achilles heel, those three brothers were able to be a big integral piece to them making a run. I think in a trade like this, everybody does walk away happy. Now, I'm not over here like pressed or like desperate for us to get Kristaps Porzingis, but I think with his ability to space the floor, face up in the post game, and block shots, he can provide some value. Especially you put him next to Eve, right? They balance each other well, or Zion, they balance each other well. But given his own issues with health, whatever potential, because I think there's more to it. That's just my theory, but I think there's more to whatever this inner immune disease or thing that he had that popped up when during the Celtics series against the Knicks, and he caused him to miss some games. And it's like, man, this is your former team. Don't you want to show them up? Don't you want to get your redemption? But if he can still play at the level that he played at this past year, averaging 20, averaging 2 blocks, shooting, over 38, like 37, 38 from the 3-point line. I mean, it's hard to say no to that. Hard to say no to that as a 7'2", 7'3" player. And then Jaden Hardy's a young guard who has a lot of potential still. He was the top recruit. He was one of the top recruits out of the class of 21. I remember watching his hoop tape. The kid can ball. I need to stop doing that. The young man can ball. I need to stop calling these grown men kids. But it's just, as I'm getting older, I'm picking up them old head tendencies that I used to hear when I was coming up. But the young man can hoop. And while we're figuring out, if we don't draft Jeremiah Fears, right? Let's say we draft Kaman, right? Think about this. We draft Kaman, so we've got our 2 defensive bigs in Kaman and Eve. And then you got Porzingis there. You got Zion. If we don't trade Trey or Herb, then you've still got CJ. DeJounte's getting himself back. Then having a young guard like Jaden Hardy to learn from CJ, to learn from DeJounte, to be able to throw alley-oops to Zion, to kick the ball out to the top of the key to Kristaps on a pick and pop. I mean, there's a lot of possibility. A lot of possibility. So I'm not – this was a trade where I was like, I'm interested. So if I'm President Dumars and a trade like this is put on my desk, I'm going to definitely look into it. This is something that I'm definitely going to consider. Something I'm going to say, yeah, I might be onto something. Now, speaking of might be onto something, but y'all ain't been giving me credit or y'all been having an issue, but you know what? Hey, Chris sees the vision. Y'all need to see it too. But Jordan Hawkins, all right? I've talked about from the jump that Jordan Hawkins, to me, is a player who has so much potential. So much potential. He's only 23 years old. Won a national championship in college. Was a great winning player in high school. And he burst on the scene for us as our first-round pick in 2023. And he had a very good rookie campaign. Last year, it was a little bit of a sophomore slump. But people have to take into account he had a bad back injury. Now, back injuries are very, very crucial. I mean, think about it. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm sitting upright or I'm not. If I keep slouching over after a certain amount of time, that's going to impact my height. It's going to impact my posture. It's going to impact just the way that I carry myself, right? And watching Jordan Hawkins last year, right? Because statistically, his stats actually all went up. Points went up. He averaged about 11 a game, 3 boards, and assists. So all those benchmark stats went up. But it was the efficiency that all went down. Because he shot 37 from the field when as a rookie. He shot 38. That has to improve. That's not going to cut it at a playoff championship level. But I know he's capable. The biggest area of drop off was from the three. He went from 37% to 31%. And he's a sniper. He's a shooter. There's a reason he was compared to guys like Ray Allen, Richard Hamilton, Allen Houston coming out of college. All those guys were amazing shooters who also could create off the dribble if need be. But you definitely did not want to leave them open. You definitely did not want to give them space on the perimeter because they were going to make you pay for it. And then free throw shooting, right? He went from 84% to 82%. But Chris, as well as I, feel like he's got the potential to be most improved player. You know what I'm saying? And, we saw how Herb, nearly won it. And then he's no longer with us. And he did kind of air us out. Maybe I'll talk about it. Maybe I won't. But Dyson Daniels, he's out in ATL where they're cool. Nah, okay. I'm not gonna throw those Saul at ATL. And then shout out to Bryson Graham, who's gonna be their senior VP, and they put out a nice message for him commemorating his 15 years of great work and service and stuff like that. But could Jordan Hawkins be next? I think it's very possible. People forget in his 7th game he scored 31 against Denver. Right, his career high was 34 versus Dallas. Denver and Dallas were 2 teams last year that were some of the best in the West. Denver, one of the best in the West. Dallas was the team that came out the finals. This past year, he had 820-plus games. And he had the best ones against winning teams. He had 25 against Denver earlier the season. He had 25 versus Detroit during later in the year, and then he also had 23 versus the Pacers earlier in the year. So Denver is a team that has been one of the best in the West. They won a championship in 2023. The Pistons had one of the best single-season turnarounds in NBA history. They're becoming a force in the East. They're becoming well-respected. Shout out to Mr. Troy Weaver, who built that current infrastructure and team that you're seeing right now. So if he can bring that type of energy over here, again, like I've been saying videos ago, trust the vision if he can execute it. Keyword. But I feel like, give the man a chance. Give the brother an opportunity to show and prove. And then the Pacers, right? The Pacers are up 2-1 versus the Thunder. 68-win Thunder. Now, it was a regular season game, and the Pacers admittedly had some... They started the year a bit slower than expected. This was a team that was in the Eastern Conference Finals the previous year, right, against the Celtics, and then this year right now, they've had one of the best, underdog years that I've ever seen. So, all I'm saying is that Jordan Hawkins is a player who he adjusts to the level of competition. He has some of his best games against some of the best teams and best players, and given the I don't want to say the discourse around him, it's just not the same. Because there's some Pelicans fans that I communicate with pretty regularly that I know. I get it. The sports car isn't as shiny as it once was. I get it, but it's still a sports car, right? Still a Lamborghini, still a Maserati. I'm not gonna act like I'm a big cars guy. Right? But I'm just saying, right? He was drafted as a lottery pick in the first round for a reason. He was an All-American in college and a McDonald's All-American in high school for a reason. He won a national championship in college as the number one player, as the lead guard for a reason, right? He was the leader of that UConn team, not Stephon Castle, who I love and I think is a tremendous player. Shout out to him, Rookie of the Year for those Spurs. Hopefully they don't move him. Jordan Hawkins was the lead player of that UConn Huskies team. Not even Donovan Clingan, who, he was on that team as well. That was a very talented team of players, but Jordan Hawkins was the leader of that team, was the best player. I still think his ceiling's incredibly high. It's way too soon to throw in the towel and give up on him. Now, he has to prove himself. I ain't saying just give him the starting role. No, he has to prove himself. But if there's a player that I'm betting on who is going to come back on another level, my bet is Jordan Hawkins as well. And I ain't just saying that because Chris is saying that. I'm my own man. I stand on my own, just like Chris does. But ball respects ball. Game recognizes game. I get it. He was not as efficient this past year, but he was dealing with a back injury, right? The great Larry Bird was never the same. I'm not putting Jordan Hawkins and Larry Bird in the same, but I'm just as an example, right? Larry Bird, back in the early 90s, the Celtics were trying to keep that 80s dynasty alive. Why couldn't they? Aside from, the deaths of Len Bias and Reggie Lewis, but because Bird had a debilitating back injury that got worse and worse and worse. And yet he still put up big numbers. He's Larry Bird. He's one of the greatest players of all time. Top 10 player, if you ask me. But back injuries are crucial. Another guy who I can think of, Michael Porter Jr., who I talked about last video, right? Michael Porter Jr. looked like one of the most can't-miss prospects in years. One of the most refined offensive players to come up. And he's a good player, but that back injury that he suffered leaving high school and then while at Missouri is a huge reason why he didn't become the number one pick like everyone was expecting him to be, right? He didn't become that Jason Tatum meets Kevin Durant type of player that everybody expected him to be, right? Another guy, Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard, should be in the Hall of Fame. Should have been in the NBA top 75. I love a guy like Dame Lillard, but you're not going to sit and tell me that Dame has had a better impact and been better at his position than Dwight was in his prime. You're just not. There's no argument. Like, I wouldn't even have had Dame in there over a Vince Carter or a Tracy McGrady, but that's a combo for another time. But I love Dame. I really do. Like, Stopwatch? Hell yeah. I've seen Dame play live like 2 or 3 times. He's an incredibly fun player to watch live. And he's a player that I'm rooting for to be able to get a ring. But I say all that to say that back injuries, right? Dwight, after the back injury that he started to get in Orlando towards the end of his time there, then in LA that year where him and Steve Nash, perfect example, right? Steve Nash was never the same after that back injury he suffered. He suffered it worse than Dwight. Well, not worse, but in a sense, like it was just worse how he got it, because he got it from like picking up his suitcase. Now, granted, Steve Nash was older, so it was like, all right, this is just Father Time saying, hey, I'm undefeated over here, baby. Floyd Mayweather style. But he was never the same after his back injury, right? It took a toll on him, and it took a toll on Dwight, right? After that year in LA where, they thought that team was going to, right the wrongs from that '04 team with Malone and Payton. So then you get that team. Back injuries is why Dwight never reached the same level that he was at in Orlando. He still had some great years in Houston, did his thing with Charlotte, Atlanta, the Wizards, redeemed himself, winning a ring with the Lakers in 2020. Like he's had a great career. But those back injuries, what I'm trying to just say is back injuries is nothing to scoff at. Back injuries is nothing to take lightly. But Jordan Hawkins has youth on his side. He's still young. He's not expected to come in there, be the starter. So, you get to grow in a less pressurized role. Give the young man a chance. Give the young man a chance. He comes from a serious hoop pedigree. You know what I'm saying? He was known in Baltimore and the DMV as a whole. And if you know anything about the DMV, they produce hoopers. They be hooping out there. Basketball is strong culturally out there. I don't know if y'all some of y'all ever been, but it's very strong out there, especially Maryland. You start talking ball, it'd be like 1,000 people who circle around you, giving their takes. That's how passionate they are about basketball there. So He comes from, and he's from Baltimore, mind you, too. Baltimore, they exist in their own, like, little mini country. They don't even consider themselves part of the DMV. They're like, we're our own sovereign nation. You come out of Baltimore as a hooper, and Jordan Hawkins is like a very laid-back, nice guy. You know what I'm saying? Jordan Hawkins, he doesn't have that energy of, like, he could be a cast member on The Wire or something like that. I love The Wire, so, I got to throw that in there. But he came from an environment like Baltimore as a hooper. Came out of there. And he showed promise, and he's still shown promise still. So I say all this overarching stuff to say, yeah, Jordan Hawkins, most improved, put that on my ballot as well. Put that on my ticket. You heard it first. Jordan Hawkins for most improved player in 2025, 2026. Hey, I'm trying to give y'all every possible, every possible way. Like if he gets that shot back to where it was his rookie year and to closer to where it was at UConn, he might be at the All-Star weekend in the 3-point shootout. Like you got to think about all these different things that could happen as a result. But I love the potential of Jordan Hawkins. I think he's an incredibly talented player. I'm sure he's picking up a lot of game, learning from the guys like CJ and DeJounte as a two guard, as a guy who can be versatile enough to sometimes, if he needs to, play the point. Like I definitely think that he is developing and is going to continue to develop. Now, if he falls off, then I'm gonna feel like an idiot. But I'm still rocking with J Hawk to the end. You know what I'm saying? That's my dog. That's my guy. But I think that there's plenty of room and there's plenty of reason for him to improve and get to a whole other level. Which, hey, we love that. We would love that. So, food for thought. How many times y'all heard me say that? But that's going to wrap things up. I really appreciate all the love and support. Make sure to like, share, comment with this video. Make sure that you're subscribed. Seriously, subscribers mean everything. Make sure that you follow Fan Arch on all social media. Subscribe to their platforms on YouTube as well. Their different channels. You can follow me on the gram, Dylan_Bruton10. I'll be posting my links there. Sometimes, I have to do it just more consistently, but they're all there. You know what I'm saying? So if you ever forget about an episode that I had, you click on my profile and then click on that. Go ahead, tap in. But that's gonna be it for this episode. Stay tuned for more. Appreciate y'all for the support on this journey, and we're gonna see what happens. But it's been an exciting NBA Finals. I think it's gonna be an exciting NBA draft, and I'm looking forward to an exciting offseason. So there's a lot to look forward to, and I want y'all on this journey with me. Come on and ride on this fantastic voyage. RIP to Sly Stone. Parliament family. But y'all stay blessed. Y'all stay amazing.